What is up, everybody? Welcome to a video that we're going to be talking about. Pastor McPherson. I'll be honest with you, I don't know his, Josh? I think Josh McPherson is his name. Anyway, there's a video that's been going around with Josh talking about Paula White. That's what we are going to be talking about today. So let's go ahead and get into it. So in case you're new here, every so often, not a lot, but every so often, get to do something like this where hop on, do a live stream, turn it into a video. If you are interested in chatting, let me know. Drop it below in the chat, and we'll talk about some of the things that maybe come up on this. Long story short, Josh McPherson, I don't know if he would be considered, I guess we'll see in the video, won't we? We'll see what he says in the video. I'll say this before we get over to it. This video went a little viral recently because Pastor Josh McPherson talked about his support for Paula White. The video itself is only 2 minutes and 42 seconds, but I want to go through it because I think it's got some interesting reasons for why he would support Paula White. Then we'll kind of work through all of that, what that looks like, why it may be problematic. So let's hop over to this screen. Now, one of the things that is interesting that if you've not been on Twitter, you maybe haven't seen it so much, but Paula White is the religious, let's look it up real quick. I don't want to get the title wrong. Let me see. Here we go. Her title at the White House is the White House Faith and Opportunity Initiative, right? That's what she does. And she served as an advisor there under the Trump administration. She was appointed to this role in 2019 and 2020. So this is what she does. She heads the White House's Faith and Opportunity Initiative. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, there has been some questionable reasoning. Like, people have pushed back and be like, hey, maybe, I don't know if she's the best option for that. But some people have rallied around supporting her, Josh being apparently one of them. Now, before, a lot of people, I've said this on X before, I've basically said, like, hey, are there any pastors out here that are going to call Paula White out? Or are you just going to be on her side because she has the president's ear? Nobody's really come flat out and said, hey, we support Paula White, other than recently, as far as I know. If there's other videos, let me know. But as far as I can tell, Josh McPherson is the first one that has just blatantly come out and said it. And so I just want to walk through. It's a very simple video here. We're just going to walk through, look at his reasoning, and talk about it. I'm not going to say this is really just like off the cuff commentary. I've seen this video maybe twice. Don't have any notes, anything prepared. I just, this is my off the cuff reaction to it. And so let's go ahead and get into it. If you're new to the channel, just so you know, I'm going to stop this video a lot. So let's watch it through all the way first, all 2 minutes and 42 seconds, and then we'll kind of work our way back through it, because I don't want to like stop and go. I want you to at least know the full context of what he's saying, and then we will kind of look at what he's saying. So let's go ahead and do that first.
I get emails. The emails and texts and questions go something like this. Why would you, a Reformed complementarian homeschool kid, partner with a Pentecostal TV evangelist? I have at least 10 reasons. They didn't make the email that I did not respond to, but I will respond now. Number one, I like her more than you. Number two, she's done more for the church and Christianity than you. Number three, she's working harder for the church and Christians around the world day and night than you. Number four, I hate labels, and so as soon as you stick them on me or one of my friends, I want to blow it up. Number five, Israel had tribes, and they were never more dangerous to the enemy when they were united, and they were never more dangerous to themselves when they were divided. I will refuse to be a liability to the Church of Jesus Christ, and therefore refuse to pit my tribe against another, because the Church of Jesus Christ may have different camps, but we are all on one team. Reason number 6, if you get 180 faith policies passed in 200 days, it directly benefits the entire church in America. If you love God with a passion and serve the poor with a fervor previously unknown to mankind, like this woman does, feeding poor people to the tune of 10 million pounds of food a year, then I would be on your team too. Number 7, what we're doing is bigger and more important than tribalism. Number 8, Paula speaks my love language, results. Number 9, Paul is a gifted leader to be sure, but more than that, she is a forged woman. Never forget that before God uses someone mightily in public, he will probably wound him deeply in private. Spurgeon said that. She carries the wounds of a warrior. She is godly humble. She is a woman of discernment. People will never realize how humble people in the public eye actually are because they have to die to their need to be liked. They have to die to their reputation be drugged through the mud week after week. They have to stand up in front of rooms filled with people who have read the lies about them online and believe them. And number 10, I'm a limited man who has a lot to learn, and I believe I have things I can learn from her experience, wisdom, and example about how to move the needle for the kingdom of God. Her life and ministry have touched millions. Her passion for the gospel is superseded by very few I've met, if any. Fighting poverty, nothing short of extraordinary. Over the past 4 years alone, Paula White Ministries, through the generosity of its partners, 30 million pounds of food distributed to the poor, nourishing families and restoring dignity to communities facing hardship, delivering critical relief services, hurricane-ravaged areas like Chimney Rock, North Carolina, Puerto Rico, Maui, to rebuild communities in southern Israel after the tragic October 7 massacre. Paula's team is everywhere all the time on the front lines of compassion. Her outreach programs, including the annual Back to School Bash, Thanksgiving Table, and the Wilderness Children's Christmas Outreach, have impacted hundreds of thousands by providing not just material support, but love and hope in the gospel. Additionally, her efforts to provide clean water wells in Africa and India and support organizations like Feed the Children demonstrate a heart for global humanitarian impact. What'd you do last week, email champion? What'd you do, blogger boy? I got no time for people who criticize those who are giving their best days to move the kingdom needle. I get email.
Okay, so this is I guess I haven't watched all the thing all the way through because the last part I hadn't heard. So let's walk through all of this because I think some of these reasons are very interesting. And to be clear, I don't know a ton about Josh. I know that he's adjacent to like Josh Howerton. I know that like Ryan Vasanti, I think is his name as well. They did a whole podcast. Like they're on each other's podcasts a lot. They talk a lot about it. They do go to the White House occasionally. I don't think often, but obviously Josh here does have some connection or inside information on Paula White. And so he seems like it doesn't seem like he is defending her. So then the question becomes for us as believers, especially those of us that have said, okay, well, Paula White is connected with some fairly not, just heretical people, Kenneth Copeland being the chief among them, and has partnered with them and has said herself some very questionable things. It is not going to take you very long to go online to find a clip or an entire sermon of Paula White saying some questionable things. And so at that point, you go, okay, where does the discernment come in which we say we can partner with somebody because they're doing good versus we are not going to partner with them because theologically they're compromised or questionable or just completely off the map. And so let's walk through his statements of why he is going to support her. Now, he obviously got an email or a lot of emails, and he saw the online pushback to support her. And so he puts this out, a very impassioned plea for why he is going to support her. So let's walk through each of these reasons, because I think there's going to be some very notable things here that I think are just on their face, bad argumentation. But let's go ahead and look at him. So here we go, starting over again.
The emails and texts and questions go something like this. Why would you, a Reformed complementarian homeschool kid, partner with a Pentecostal TV evangelist?
Okay, so here we go. He sets the stage for us, which is the question for a lot of people. If you're a complementarian homeschool kid, he says, but I'm sure he's probably for the homeschool movement, then why would you partner with a televangelist that is a woman pastor, right? So at that point, people can see on its face that there is some sort of there's a problem. Like there's a bit of an issue, just on its face of if you hold these positions, why would you then also support her, right? So I mean, he sees, he at least acknowledges that there's some differences.
I have at least 10 reasons. They didn't make the email that I did not respond to, but I will respond now. Number 1, I like her more than you. Number 2.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is where I think that if we're going to respond to things ever, and I've had to learn this, and I'm not great at it, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but let's just be clear about all this. I think we all can learn from this. But if we're going to respond to pushback, let's at least respond with some substantive reasoning, right? I like her more than you is not a good reason, right? That's a dumb reason. That's not, that's not a reason, right? The idea that I like her more than I like you is why I support. Look, there's people that I think are really nice, that are really friendly, that I like as people. I'm fine with them as people. But if I'm gonna have to pick like somebody I don't like their personality or their approach to things, I don't like that approach that they have, but I do agree with them like doctrinally. I am going to side with them over the person that I think is a genuinely nice person, but just has bad doctrine. Right? I think we have to logically be consistent here in our dealings with everyone and how we communicate that. There are people that I think their approach is a little iffy. I wouldn't approach anything that way, but I think that they're doctrinally grounded, they're doctrinally correct. Even if I wouldn't necessarily use that approach, and I don't even necessarily like the approach they use a lot, I still would say I pick them over this other person that I think is just genuinely nice because I think that maybe their doctrine is a little messed up. There's a lot of people online like that. Um, and so at that point, I think this first reasoning is just dumb. I think everyone could probably agree with that. I'm sure some people won't. But the I like her more than I like you is not a good reason. It's a superficial one at best. Here's his reason too.
Two, she's done more for the church and Christianity than you. No,
Okay. I hear this one a lot. So this happens all the time. If you um from the early days of doing sermon reviews and doing critiques of sermons, especially of well-known pastors, what I have heard just ad nauseum is, yeah, but they've done more for the church than you'll ever do in your entire life, right? So this is quantifiable thing, like for people. They're like, well, but quantifiably, works wise, I like this person because they've done more than you'll ever do, right? And so now we're using metrics that aren't necessarily, I wouldn't say are necessarily biblical, like depending on how you're viewing them. Obviously, there are lots of things. So if you look at the Bible, I'm thinking of the Kings specifically, and that's just because I've been there recently. But there are notable things in which the king does a lot of things, and therefore that is a good king because they did a lot of good and godly things. And so they're a good king because they did these things. And so there are ways to quantify that and go, okay, that's a good thing because quantifiably they did a lot in their given position. That's not necessarily a good metric though to say I like this person more than I like you because they've done more good things. You're both believers, right? And then what we have to do if we're going to quantify it like that, we then have to ask, okay, but is the quantity of those things they've done, right? Are they just good things or are they good gospel things, right? So you can, and you saw the whole video before we even started this. So he's going to get to the point where he says she's done XYZ, helped out so many people, did a lot of hurricane relief. Like we're very like getting on the edge of these good things are what make you like a good believer. Not going to argue the whole, faith without works is dead thing. Obviously, believers should be doing good works. Certain believers are in positions to do quantifiably more. That doesn't mean that they are better than other people. That just means that they've been put in a position to have the opportunity to do quantifiably more. The question then becomes, though, is the platform they've been given and the things they're doing actually benefiting the gospel, or is it actually bringing reproach to the gospel? Right? There are good things that one can do. Right? It'd be hard to argue that feeding people is a bad thing or rebuilding buildings is a bad thing. Right? Those things are like qualitatively very good things to do. They aren't necessarily rooted gospel things though, right? Unbelievers do quantifiably good things all the time. The exact same things that he names Paula doing as far as building houses, feeding the homeless, like these are quantifiably good things. But where do they come from and what are they doing? And this again comes back to Paula's doctrine and the gospel she preaches. And so this is really where the contention is. It's not about the good works or good things that are being done. It's, is her doctrine sound or is it not? Right? Or does she promote and partner with people that have good doctrine and progress the gospel, or does she partner with people that distort the gospel, irregardless of the good things that you can point out that she does? And so his two reasons so far is he likes her more than he likes you, which is a dumb reason. Two, she's done more for Christianity than you'll ever do. which is reason 2. And it's just both of these are really faulty from the get-go. I mean, I doubt Josh would use the same line of reasoning if he's talking about like policy. Josh, as far as I know, is a very politically involved individual. If he were going to use the same argumentation, given policies that are humanitarian policies, then I doubt he would use the same argument, because you could argue, depending on the year or the president, humanitarian policies that do quantifiably good things that he's already naming, where other times presidents don't do quantifiably good things, right? So it's just faulty argumentation. It's very, very biased on the fact that he likes her more than he likes you. So of course he's going to side with her. So here's reason 3.
Number 3, she's working harder for the church and Christians around the world day and night than you. Number 4.
So again, these are, I want you to know, and you've probably already said it if we watched the video all the way through. All of these things are like works based. They're number based. So now it's, well, she's doing more for Christians all over the world than you. So the question we have to ask, though, does that then make her someone you want to partner with and support? Right? Just because she's doing quantifiably more things than this person that emailed him, does that make her work good? Right? And if we should base all of this on the foundation of the gospel proclamation, right? And so, is she teaching sound doctrine, or is she not teaching sound doctrine in which the gospel goes forth? Because if she's not teaching sound doctrine and she's not teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, then it could be argued that all of these works that she's doing, right, are actually, though in scope many, they're actually negative in their relation to the gospel. So she's doing lots of good things, but in so doing, she's also spreading bad doctrine, bad theology, and a false gospel. And so at that point, those things are actually more harmful than they are helpful, because they're giving people temporary hope, temporary substance, but ultimately, eternally, they're not going anywhere. And so all of these things, again, unbelievers do all of the things that he said before. Now, maybe not the church, but they're all doing things. They're all helping people. They're all going out doing things. So again, it comes down to not the things that you're doing, but it's the gospel that you're preaching, the doctrine that you're teaching. These are the things that matter. So reason 4, so far, all of the things are, he likes her more than he likes you because she has quantifiable metrics.
4, I hate labels, and so as soon as you stick them on me or one of my friends, I want to blow it up.
Okay, so he doesn't like being boxed in, even though he's already said he's a complementarian homeschool kid. And he would embrace those titles, but he doesn't apparently like the idea. He obviously doesn't like the idea of being boxed into a category that then makes him have to say something doctrinally about Paula's teaching, right? So he doesn't like labels. If you put a label on him, he's going to push back immediately. That's just silly. Okay, it just is. We all hold, right? So you are very likely a part of a denomination. If you're a part of a denomination, in that denomination, there are certain, theological standards that you have. There are certain beliefs that you have based on your denomination that you hold and that you've accepted and that you believe and that you teach, right? These are, if it's a denomination, it's mainly secondary things. But the idea is that you hold them, and they are labels that you have willingly put on yourself because you say, I have looked at Scripture, I have examined it, and this is what I believe Scripture teaches. And then so you have put a label on yourself to say, I will defend these things. Now, some of them are closed-handed. Some of them are open-handed. Some of them you'll die on that hill. Some of them you're like, I'm not going to fight you over it. But the idea is everyone has labels on them. So this idea of, if you put a label on me, I'm going to try to blow it up. No, I think you just don't like the idea that you're being called out because you're supporting somebody that has historically shown themselves to both align with false teachers and to have incredibly questionable teaching herself. And so this idea that like if you put a label on me, I automatically want to blow it up. No, you don't, because you accept the label complementarian. You accept the label of, political pastor. Like you accept these labels, right? Whatever political pastor may not one that he accepts, but he's in that column. And so it's one of those things that you do accept labels. You just want to push this one off, it seems like, because you don't like the idea that people are calling you out for supporting Paula White. That's at least what it seems like, given his very fervent pushback. Look, I'm all for fervent pushback, right? If you've seen some of the stuff I posted online, I think you should get fired up if you actually believe in something. So what Josh is telling us in this video is he believes that he's totally okay to support and align with Paula White. And that seems to include her theology and her doctrine, even though it does seem to be like opposite of what he would normally preach.
Number 5, Israel had tribes, and they were never more dangerous to the enemy when they were united, and they were never more dangerous to themselves when they were divided. I will refuse to be a liability to the Church of Jesus Christ, and therefore refuse to pit my tribe against another, because the Church of Jesus Christ may have different camps, but we are all on one team.
Okay, so it's very interesting. This example gets really kind of wrapped up bad just by his comparison to the tribes of Israel and the tribes within the American church currently. Let's go with the idea that I've just pulled up a few here. So what you have over and over again in the Old Testament, again with kings, is you have tribes that are going off into idolatry, some before others, especially when you have Solomon's son split the kingdom. And so what you have is there are tribes that should call out other tribes whenever they go into idolatry. Like that's the right thing to do, is to call them back to the living God and to do the things that he says to do. Like you should call them back. Now, are you, right? If all the tribes of Israel were worshiping the living God, yes, they are more powerful together. But if you have some tribes that are going off, like we see split off after in Solomon's sons, and go off in two different directions, and then Solomon starts a whole thing of idol worship anyway that just kind of sets the stage for terrible things, and terrible king after terrible king after terrible king in both the north and southern kingdom. But the point being is that there is truth that if they're together, they're better, but they should also call each other out when they're straying, which they did. Now, that aside, he has this idea that you shouldn't be divisive amongst Christians if because when you are, it makes, we're all on the same team and we shouldn't fight with each other because we're all on the same team. We're only all in the same team if we preach the same gospel and hold to the same beliefs, right? This is, again, early church, Nicene Creed, Apostles' Creed, right? We have a whole bunch of things of saying, what are the standards of faith? Now, that being said, there are more than enough people that have made videos about Paula White. There are more than enough people that have critiqued her ministry. I've personally never done one, but I've seen a bunch of them that have. I've seen some of her teaching. Maybe I need to do a sermon review on her at some point, but I've seen plenty of videos of people kind of walking through her teaching. And I have done videos on people that she is, adjacent to, like Kenneth Copeland. There's no way, in my mind, seeing the stuff I've seen Kenneth Copeland teach, that you can be adjacent and aligned with Kenneth Copeland and me give you any sort of stamp of approval. That just simply isn't going to happen. And so this idea of we shouldn't interfight because we're all on the same team only holds water if you can show that she's on the same team. Okay? One of the things that I think we need to do more of is say, okay, here are the foundational beliefs of Christianity, which we already have, by the way. If you say you hold to them, great, but there are obviously ways that you communicate that to show that you not only believe, but teach Orthodox Christian belief. And again, I'll say it for the 50th time, the clips I've seen of Paula teaching and the people she openly aligns herself with are questionable at best on holding those distinctives of Christian faith. So at the very least, there should be some questions of clarification of what do you mean when you say these things, and why do you align yourself with these people? This idea of we can't interfight because we'll eat each other alive and divide. Sometimes that's a good thing, right? There is time to break away and say, you are not a part of us. Because though you say you hold to these things, you're doing all of these other things. Again, if you want to go back to the tribes of Israel, we can do that. We have the tribes of Israel claiming to follow God while also being syncretistic in their worship with idols. And so there is a point in which the prophets go, you're not, like you're not following God. And so there's a call to repentance whenever it's clear that you're not following God. And so the idea of that we're all on one team, so we shouldn't fight about stuff is kind of crazy, because there are times to call brothers and sisters out. That's assuming that you're a brother and sister. So at the very least, if he does think that Paul is on the same team, then there should at least be some calling out amongst brothers and sisters on things that are, again, at best, questionable about what has been taught.
Reason number 6, if you get 180 faith policies passed in 200 days, it directly benefits the entire church in America. If you love God with a passion and serve the poor with a fervor previously unknown to mankind, like this woman does, feeding poor people to the tune of 10 million pounds of food a year, then I would be on your team too. No.
Okay, so here's the thing. So he's going to be on your team, he says, not based on doctrine or foundational, like, Christian teaching. That is not why he's on your team. He's on your team if two to three things happen depending on how you divide up what he said there. The first being that you get a bunch of policies passed that benefit Christians. 2, you feed the poor with fervency yet not known to mankind. That is quite a claim, by the way. And so and you feed the poor in the tune of 10 million, right? 10 million pounds of food. Now, first of all, those metrics are obviously off the chart. Reference what I said before. Some people have bigger platforms, are able to do more with the platforms they have than others. Nobody that sends him an email is going to be able to pass those legislations or those things that affect Christians, because they're not in a position to do that. They can't do that. At best, they may be able to affect the local level, but they're never going to have that much effect, which again is why people are questioning, should Paula be there? Because, what is she doing in the long term? Second, again, the feeding the poor thing, it's not about, right, how many, it's about, are you doing the things Jesus taught? So what we've got back to now is quantifiable metrics of, if you do X, then I'm on your team, not if you teach things rightly that then lead to doing other things, right? So that he's completely missing orthodoxy and moving right to an assumed orthopraxy, which is, oh, well, she's right doctrinally. We can't fight with her about it because she's doing all these good things. And if we fight with her about it, she's going to get to do all those good things, and we're not going to, we're openly opposing the good things she's doing. Look, lots of people do good things. We should applaud the good things. Unbelievers do good things. You know why they do good things? It's because the law is written on their heart. Even the people that don't know Jesus, there are a lot of people that don't know Jesus that run nonprofit organizations that give lots of food, lots of money, lots of aid to people. Okay, so you can't say, well, are you going to be on their team? Right? Let's say there's somebody that does put into policy, 200 different things that directly affect and benefit Christians, also do 10 million pounds of feeding the poor, but are pro-abortion. Is Josh now on their team? Because they've done the two things that he says, you do these two things, I'm on your team. What if they do those things and they are LGBTQ plus affirming? Is he also on their team still? Right? Do you see how the math doesn't math whenever you're basing your I am on your team if, when it's not foundationally on the gospel. It's all metrics driven, right? When you don't question doctrine, you lead yourself into some places that are not great. Let's keep going.
Number 7, what we're doing is bigger and more important than tribalism. Number 8.
Okay, so what we're doing, we'll get back to that in a minute. What we're doing is bigger and more important than tribalism. Now, two things. He does not define what we're doing. I'm assuming what we're doing means that because Paula is has the ear of the president as far as faith advisor, then she has a way to influence. She's the neck to the head, essentially, of faith policies. And so when, we're doing something bigger than fighting about doctrine. Okay. If we're going to go with that argument, then what we're saying is the neck that turns the head, we shouldn't fight with the neck. My contention is if the neck has bad doctrine and it's turning the head, that's actually more concerning. And yeah, I should probably fight with the neck at that point, right? If Paula White has the ear of the president, and I know her doctrine is prosperity gospel leaning, if not completely founded in that, and she's adjacent to people like Kenneth Copeland and his whole bunch, then yes, I have a problem, and I'm going to be very tribalistic about that because I think that's just as bad as having an unbeliever be the neck and turn the head. It just has an appearance of Christianity without actually having the doctrine of Christianity. So yes, there are quantifiably good things that she's done. Fed a lot of people, given a lot of resources, done a lot of good stuff. We're ignoring entirely and actually pushing back against the idea that we should question her doctrine and her teaching. That's what he's done through his whole reasoning. We're not addressing that at all because according to what he just said, what we're doing is more important than that. And so now we're focusing almost primarily on the political aspect, or seemingly that seems to be what we're talking about. It's not named, but that seems to be what we're talking about. We're focusing primarily on the political aspects of what's going on than what we're actually focusing on, like doctrinally, right? Orthodoxy always drives orthopraxy. You can have some good orthopraxy come from bad orthodoxy. You can. You can have people that have a real messed up theology about who Jesus is, but some of the things they do will still be good, right? So one of the things that she does, feed a lot of people. Great. That's a good thing. What's the orthodoxy driving that though, right? And if it is prosperity gospel, then yeah, the car's moving, but we have a bad engine in the car and we need to do some maintenance on it. But he's saying, don't worry about the knocking in the engine. Don't worry about the noise. The car's moving. Just let it keep rolling, essentially. Let's keep going. We're almost to the end.
Paula speaks my love language, results. Number 9.
Okay, so number 8. His number 8 is results. Results is his love language. So here's the thing. This is where this at its core is foundationally just pragmatism, right? Pragmatism says, do whatever we need to do to get the results we want to get. That is what pragmatism is. And so what Josh says is Paul speaks my love language, which is results, which means that as long as he gets the result he wants, he's fine with the method, or seemingly fine with the method that it takes to get there. So if Paula, whatever, let's ignore her doctrine, let's ignore her teaching, let's ignore some of the stuff she says, because the results she gets are what we want. So he doesn't flatly outright say this, but I think I'm just going to assume here and use very general assumptions. So I think I'm going to try to be very generous in my statement here. I think what he's saying is that she's getting some policies passed that are very favorable toward Christians and Christianity. And because she's getting those results, let's not quibble or fight about what she actually believes foundationally, though. We all know she said these things, but we're going to ignore them because we're more focused on the results than we are about the details, right? That's pragmatism. That's like going to a church and saying, hey, we had a lot of people come up and repeat a prayer. And you go, okay, but like, do they know what they're saying? They're like, hey, shh, don't worry about what if they know what they're saying. They said the prayer. We can claim all of these salvations on a piece of paper because they all came up and they all said the thing. And so now we can say these people accepted Jesus, even if they have no idea what they actually said, right? So that, again, pragmatism there is problematic, because it's again more concerned about the results than it is about how you got those results.
Paul is a gifted leader, to be sure, but more than that, she is a forged woman. Never forget that before God uses someone mightily in public, he will probably wound him deeply in private. Spurgeon said that. She carries the wounds of a warrior. She is godly humble. She is a woman of discernment. People will never realize how humble people in the public eye actually are because they have to die to their need to be liked. They have to die to their reputation be drugged through the mud week after week. They have to stand up in front of rooms filled with people who have read the lies about them online and believe.
So here's the thing. This is what he's saying, is that she's humble and she does what she does, even though there's a bunch of people that don't like her. And then this part's very important. I know he says more here, but I want to address this. He's essentially saying that there are things that have been said about her online that are lies, and people are repeating those lies without knowing her like Josh knows her. This might be, hold. This might be an argument if it might be an okay argument if there had been just like a few things that she had said that people were like, I'm not sure about that. Uh, a few things being said that are unclear is completely different than like decades and decades and decades worth of statements and teaching and aligning with people that are knowingly teaching things that are at best problematic and at worst heretical. And so at that point, it's not like oh, you read this blog from this basement dweller about Paula, and that's like not really her, right? It's not that. That's not the level that we're at. It's that people have examined her teaching. They've examined who she aligns with. They've examined her books, and she's been found wanting in regards of doctrine and theology. And at that point, this isn't just a lie that somebody's read online and they go, well, that Paula White, you know. And so basically what he's saying is anybody that says anything against her, well, you're operating a smear campaign.
Them. And number 10, I'm a limited man who has a lot to learn, and I believe I have things I can learn from her, experience, wisdom, example about how to move the needle for the kingdom of God. Her life.
Okay, so hey, number 10. I think this last part is like sort of outside his last reason, so we're gonna stop. Like, I want to explain this part, and then we'll move on to the last part. Look, there's a lot of things, right? I think I've said this before. If I haven't, I mean, no, I have. I've definitely said this before, but I'll say it again. There are lots of things that we can learn from people that we totally disagree with, right? I would agree with him that there's lots of things that we can learn from a Paula White, right? Organizational structure is probably something that a lot of people could learn, like how to run a non-for-profit for as long as she has, right? I've said it before. There's some things that people can learn from, like a Stephen Furtick and how he preaches, that would be helpful for them to incorporate into their preaching to maybe be more engaging with their audience in regards to, like, because he obviously can keep people's attention. There's things that people can learn from all kinds of people that preach that we would not align with, though, right? Yes, we can all learn something from somebody. It's not a groundbreaking idea. That's just reality. I learn stuff from people I like and people I don't like every single day. That's not a point. That's not a point of alignment. Just because someone's a limited man, that can learn something. Yeah, of course. Everybody does that.
Life and ministry have touched millions. Her passion for the gospel is superseded by very few I've met, if any. Fighting poverty, nothing short of extraordinary. Over the past 4 years alone, Paula White Ministries, to the generosity of his partners, 30 million pounds of food distributed to the poor, nourishing families and restoring dignity to communities facing hardship, delivering critical relief services, hurricane-ravaged areas like Chimney Rock, North Carolina, Puerto Rico, Maui, to rebuild communities in southern Israel after the tragic October 7 massacre. Paula's team is everywhere all the time on the front lines of compassion. Her outreach programs, including the annual Back to School Bash, Thanksgiving Table, and the Wilderness Children's Christmas Outreach, have impacted hundreds of thousands by providing not just material support, but love and hope in the gospel. Additionally, her efforts to provide clean water wells in Africa and India and support organizations like Feed the Children demonstrate a heart for global humanitarian impact. What'd you do last week, email champion? What'd you do, blogger boy? I got no time for people who criticize those who are giving their best days to move the kingdom needle.
Okay, so this is very, so again, we come back to pragmatism, right? Now, to be fair, again, I want to be as generous to Josh as I can be here. At the heart of all of this is pragmatism. It's results that we are then going to measure against other people's results. And then whoever has the best results is who wins, I guess, right? So again, we'll go back to his first 2 points. Like, hey, she does all this, you don't do this. He likes her, he doesn't like you. She does all this ministry, you don't do all this ministry, right? She did all these good works, you haven't done all these good works. And then he ends with essentially the same thing, which is like, hey, this is all her ministry has done. What did you do last week? And it's stated in a way that if you didn't have an organization that donated 30 million pounds of food to people, shut your mouth, essentially. I mean, that's essentially what he's saying. The reason that I would firstly see this as problematic is because it is just pragmatism. As believers, we don't measure things by results. Do we want results? Of course we do. Are you always going to get the results that you want immediately? No, you're not. So results are good. They are a good metric, but they aren't necessarily the ultimate metric. Ultimately, what we're looking for is, are you preaching the gospel? Are you evangelizing the lost? Are you discipling the saved? And as you do these things, obviously there are going to be good works that come from them. People are going to use their time, talents, and resources to do good things in their local community, or in some cases on a global scale. These are all good things, but they all are rooted in right teaching that bring forth good works, right? And so while I think when we use pragmatism as a metric, what ends up happening is we can get very confused and caught up in the results and ignore where those results are coming from. I think what often happens is that Christians, will support people because of the results and not question the methodology or question the doctrine underneath it at all. This is why sometimes people go, oh, there's revival over here or revival over there. Great. There's lots of people seemingly coming forward. What are they actually being taught, though? Like, can they explain the gospel, though? Because if they can't and they're coming forward, it's not that I'm not saying that they're not saved, they're not seeking God. I'm just saying I think maybe, right, we should question what the teaching is that brought them to this point. This is what we do in the sermon reviews all the time. There are some enormous ministries that have awesome results, quote unquote, but have terrible teaching. And there are some ministries that we've seen that have very small churches, results, right? As far as results go, it doesn't look very big, but they're founded and grounded in teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, those two are not mutually exclusive, right? You can have enormous churches that have lots of growth that also teach the gospel, and you can have very small churches that seem to have, a stability, but they don't preach the gospel. Again, not mutually exclusive, but that's why we don't use pragmatism as a measuring tool. We use, is the gospel being proclaimed as a measuring tool, because that's what matters. And so at the end of the day, when our argument is, I'm on your team because you're getting results, that is the wrong metric to use in measuring, is this something I should support or not? And so it seems to me, and this is just me guessing, this is just me speculating, it seems to me that because Paula seems to be getting the results that Josh wants, he is not going to risk those results by questioning her doctrine and being cut off from having her support her ear, the ability to access the president. Like, there are certain things that it would cost him to actually say, Paula, I think your doctrine is a little off. I think that you're teaching a gospel that is a bit twisted. I think the people you align yourself with, you should really think about why you align yourself with them and if their teaching is good or not, right? And you don't have to do that out of some sort of place of like superiority or anger or any of that, but really out of love for a brother or sister that says, hey, I don't want you to be doing these things, thinking you're doing the right thing, and then end up in hell for it, or lead other people to hell because of your teaching. And so really, whenever there is correction comes out of love. When we in the Old Testament, we'll go back to the Old Testament. The prophets are calling the people back to God and away from their idolatry, not because they hate them, but because they love them. God sends prophets to his people to warn them because he cares about them, not because he wants them to, go off and do what they're doing and, suffer consequences for it. In fact, everything he does in the Old Testament, sending the prophets, is out of love. Sending them into exile after they ignore the prophets is out of love. All of it is to bring them back. And so, actually, the worst thing you can do is to not correct people when they are teaching false things, because now what you're doing is seeking pragmatism and not repentance. You're seeking results over reconciliation, and that is not the right thing to do. And so maybe, right? Not maybe, Josh has stated that his love language is results. At the core of that seems to be pragmatism. And because he wants to see results and because he thinks Paul is getting those results, it seems that he's not going to call her out on anything that is readily accessible for him to find on the internet. I'll say this will kind of be the last thing, and then we'll go to the comments and see if there's anything there. What I found to be true in my own life and in many other people's lives is that we can very easily identify wrong teaching in people way off, right? Because we don't have a personal relationship with them, and therefore there's like less grace given. It's very often where we can say, oh, that person's doing something wrong and we should tell them, right? It's different when someone's close to you and you know them personally, because now there's a risk, right? There's a relationship risk involved, in which if I tell you that you're doing something unbiblical, you are going to like cut yourself off, or you're going to like be angry with me, or you're going to like, there's a relationship cost and risk there associated with it. So often we'll either ignore what they're saying and give them too much grace, or not say anything at all because we don't want to risk that relationship, or we don't want to risk, what might happen because of that infighting. And so what we really should do is be much more aware of our pastors, our friends, and their teaching, because if it is wrong, if it is off, we have to acknowledge that we're far less likely to call them out because of proximity. And I think this is what's happened with Josh. I think that because he was invited to the White House, I believe he has been, and got to know Paula, he's giving her a lot more grace than I think he probably should, because he's in proximity to her. He's seen some beneficial personal results, and he doesn't want to risk those results or that relationship by calling her out. Now, I'll say this, and then we'll go to the comments. If I'm wrong, I think he should at least clarify that, yeah, I've talked to her about the things that people have said about her. She's cleared it up. I feel comfortable with it, right? Just say that at least. Because at least then we know a conversation has happened. Not that you owe the internet that. I'm just saying that in general, the people that I have had issues with, that I can have personal conversations with because I know them. Sometimes that gets clarified and cleared up, and sometimes that makes it worse because they do clarify exactly what I thought they were saying, and that's not good at all. But anyway, all right, let's go to the comments real quick and work through those before we end the live stream. So Jennifer says, wow, lots to unpack. Yes, hopefully I unpacked it well. If you found this video beneficial, go ahead and leave a thumbs up. 2, I like Oh, there's a poll. Yeah, if you saw the poll in this video, go and click the poll. I'm very interested in what you guys find most beneficial on this channel. Gotta say, this is eye-opening and kind of sad. I looked up to Josh, but more recently have started to steer clear. I overlooked his focus on politics. I overlooked him wearing a baseball hat at the pulpit, but now I can't support him and with his support of Paula White. So here's one of the things that I want to say. Like, you guys do what you want to do with Josh. I don't know enough about him. I've never even watched a sermon of him. Maybe I do need to do a sermon review on him. Um, this is probably the most I've ever heard Josh talk. I don't know if I'd cut him off immediately because of what he says here, but I definitely do have some questions, right? There are definitely some questions that go, I don't know, like your discernment does seem questionable to me based on these statements, right? But maybe you'll clarify later. I don't know. The baseball cap in the pulpit thing is a little weird to me. I don't know why some pastors do that. But anyway, the last thing. So, can atheists that feed the poor move the kingdom needle? Exactly. Right. So that's one of the things. Again, I think this all goes back to pragmatism. If your metric for success is results, I just think flat out you have a bad metric. Right. Results up 100% can come from good orthodoxy, obviously, but you have to look at where they're coming from. Lots of people move the needle, um, but not for the kingdom. Lots of people do good things, like definitionally good things, but that doesn't mean that they have good doctrine or good teaching or love Jesus. And so it's one of those things where I think we just have to be aware of that and not be so focused on results. Another comment just came in. Josh McPherson, Josh Howerton, Ryan Visconti, and many others went to the White House to meet Paula. They're all great buddies, it seems. So is the guy from Mercy Culture. Yeah, there was a video that got. I didn't watch the video, but there was a video where those four were on a podcast together. I don't know who hosted it. Either Josh McPherson or Josh Howerton, because those two guys had the biggest platforms. Probably Josh Howerton, and they talked about politics and stuff. I didn't watch it. I have very limited time to watch videos, so I didn't watch it. But I think there's a bigger conversation to have on this topic of results over doctrine when it comes to politics and the evangelical American church, because I don't think it's an overstatement to say that overall, I don't want to use too much of a blanket statement, but I would say overall, the American evangelical church has traded results for doctrine in some regards. And that's problematic. But what can we expect from, Christians in the general populace if this is what pastors are saying? Pastors are going to be the ones that lead people. That's how that works. That's why there needs to be qualifications, because they are the examples that people will follow and look up to. And as such, if you have a pastor saying, well, results are what matter, yeah, you're going to have congregants that say the same thing. So that shouldn't be, yeah, that should be surprising. So anyway, guys, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, leave a like. I don't get to do these very often, so I hope it was helpful in unpacking it. I hope it was valuable to you, and just again got you thinking. One of the things that I want to do, and I always say it on this channel, is help believers use biblical discernment in all aspects of life. Obviously, the main way we do that is via sermon reviews, but videos like this are going to pop up on your feed every day if you're online, and as such, we also need a lens to be able to view them and say, is what he's saying like good? Is it biblical? Does it align with how Christians should think? And just think through that. Again, I'm not saying cut the guy off. I'm just saying that if faulty thinking is identified, we need to be able to, one, identify that faulty thinking, but two, be able to explain why it is, and then, deal with it accordingly. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.